Hi everyone, Sandra Duran Wilson here, and welcome to this week's Mixed Media Soul Sparks. Every week I try and find something exciting and new and different to maybe spark your imagination for a new place to take your mixed media work. This week I have something really kind of unique, you might say, and I call it thin skins. We did a little version of it in one of the books, and you really have to see it in video. So the idea of it is kind of like glazing. We did back another month, we did the take your glazing for a test drive. So I'm using plastic to put acrylic on, but then I'm going to actually let that dry, and then I'm going to transfer that to a painting. And so the reason I would do that rather than just doing it directly onto the painting is there's a few different reasons, and I'll show you as we go along. But let's get started. So the first thing I do have is, this is a very thin piece of plastic. I also have a heavier piece of plastic, and you're going to discover that you're going to get different results using different weights of plastic. So I want to show you, this is just a texture paper. You could use a texture plate. You could use a placemat, a weaving, anything, because you're going to put the plastic on top of it so it's not going to get dirty. And this is a soft gel gloss. And I'm taking this and I'm just putting it over the surface, the plastic that's on top. And let me just get, let's try this color. Well, we'll try it. We'll see if it wants to come out. Nope, that's not going to work. Let's try this one. And I just want to add some color to this so you can see the texture now. So on my plastic, this is kind of a thick layer because I've got the gel. Did you see that little trick? Even though I have a thin strip of the paper, I can move this around and continue to get that texture. Let me show you what happens if I have a very diluted paint and maybe even wet. It's going to be the opposite effect. My brush is very wet with water, and I put it on here. Let's see what happens. It starts to just kind of bead up. But I want to take it and try it on this heavier plastic. As I said, every plastic is a bit different. Now this is going to really start to bead up as it sits there. And that's what I want it to do. I want it to kind of get this effect. This is one of the reasons I would do this rather than painting it directly onto my painting. Because as it begins to bead up and get this pattern, when it's dry, I'm then going to transfer it on top of the painting. And I've got one already kind of prepared so I can show you what that's like. You can always spray a little alcohol on it, get it to move. But every piece of plastic is going to be just a little different. What if I put water, that was water directly onto there. You see how fluid it is. Now it's really going to want to bead up. So that's how you're going to get it onto the plastic. Let's set this aside. Now here's one that you can see the paint is on here. I just moved it around with my palette knife, did a few splatters, had it really kind of loose and a lot of open space. What I've done is, I'll show you on this one. I'm going to use the gloss medium to put the paint onto the surface. Now here's one of the tricky parts, is you have to remember which side your paint is on, because now that this paint is dry, you might say, oh, is it on that side? Or I can tell now, this side is the plastic, this side has the paint. Yeah, it's a little scratchy, that's how I could tell. And what I want to do is I only want this effect, you see this kind of white beaded up effect. That's what you sometimes get with the plastic, depending on the paint, depending on how much water you have in it. But I only want that to go right in a certain area. So I can control that in a couple of ways. The first way I'm going to show you is using the gel, and it's only going to transfer the paint where the gel is wet. So let's just say I want that to go just right about here. I don't want it to go anywhere else. I'll just put it on this way. So it's only going to stay where the gel is wet. Now this is going to take quite a while to dry because it's plastic, so there's not a lot of air that can get through to that. And that's why I did this one first. When this is dry, if I had put a thicker layer of the gel on, you'd see it as white. In fact, here it's a little white, but it'll go clear when it's dry. Let me get this red paint off of me so I don't get it everywhere else. Okay, so now we're going to pull this off, and I had started it already, and I'm peeling this part off, and you can see some of it didn't stick right there because there wasn't any gel. Over here it stuck, and down here it didn't. But you can see that it starts to just pull it off of the plastic, which this is what we call a paint skin. But a paint skin is a little trickier to deal with, as you can see. Now, if I wanted to take this off, I could just directly adhere it using the gel. But do you see what happens? It all sticks together. If I have it on the plastic, it's much easier to handle. So that's why I use the plastic. Let me show you one other reason why. And here's a piece. Let's move this one out of the way. All right. Now what if I wanted this kind of pattern, but I wanted it in a shape? So that's where I'm just going to cut up, and let's say if I wanted it into squares. My scissors are not very good. Okay. You could cut it into whatever shape you wanted, circles, stripes. But let's say I wanted it like this. Then I would put the gel there, and again you have to remember which side is the paint on, and you don't have to worry about putting the gel in like squares. I'm just going to take it and spread it across here. And I'll put those squares down, and wherever the gel is and wherever the paint is, then it'll get transferred. So there's one. Let's hope I get it the right way. And if I don't, then you just peel it off and you try again. So let those dry, and then you peel the plastic off. This is going to be easy to see, but if you're doing something which is a very similar color and you have small pieces, it can get a little tricky sometimes to see it. All right, that's one way. Now, let's say you have something like this, which is very textured, and you want to put something on there. This gel makes it much easier to put something down rather than getting hills and valleys, because I can put a thick layer of gel. And I've got a few different things here. This is one I made the same way using that texture paper. This had some dark browns and blacks mixed in. And if I wanted to say, well, what if I wanted this direction, or if I want just a small amount here, I've got another piece that, the paint's on this side. So I might just want a small area coming off here. Then I'm just going to take my gel, and I'm going to put a rather thick layer on, because there is a lot of texture. This was a gold leaf piece that I had started to paint. I also sealed it so that the acrylic won't change the gold leaf to dark. And again, the paint's only going to stick where the gel, the wet gel is. Now this is a really thick layer, so this is going to take it a few days probably to dry. But this plastic is very thin, so that's going to make it go a little faster. All right. I can't remember which way I had decided, so I'm just going to... I think it was... So I can keep moving it around. And then I just let it dry, and when it's dry, I peel it off like I did on this one. Now I'll go back in and add some lights and darks in here and finish this piece, and I'll also finish this one, put it at the end of the video, and show you all of these possibilities for using these thin skins. You're going to find that you have these extra pieces of plastic laying around, so why not use up your leftover paint and then have them around when you just need that little bit of red somewhere or the orange, and you never know what kind of shape you might want it in. So thanks for joining me this week. Check out the website, post your work, send me an email, take a workshop, and I'll see you next time. Join the Creative Awakening Community on Facebook, where you'll be able to post your art, connect with other creatives around the world, and ask questions. Use the hashtag #MixedMediaSoulSparks when posting your work on social media. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.